Who are we, you ask? We are the podcast seeking out a better understanding of all things paranormal. We'll have guests from all backgrounds in the paranormal with us along this journey, with Q&As for listeners to ask paranormal experts their questions, and open call-in nights to let listeners discuss their thoughts and experiences on the paranormal. But the question remains, can the unexplained be explained? Or can the paranormal be nothing more than perception? So, close the curtains and turn out the lights and join us on the journey into the paranormal. This is Paranormal Engaged with your host, Adam Young, coming to you from the beautiful Evergreen State.
Hello and welcome back to Paranormal Engaged. Tonight we have Tori Smith here with us, the founder of the Paranormal Help Desk, which has been dedicated to helping individuals struggling with the paranormal to get the help they need. Welcome, Tori. And so I understand that you have had experiences with the paranormal that ultimately led you to create the Paranormal Help Desk. Where did it all start?
I have. Well, it started when I was a kid. I grew up in a haunted house. I had my first interaction with the paranormal at approximately 5 years old. The house that I grew up in, I lived there until I was probably 16, right around in there. I remember being a kid around 5 years old, and I remember laying under my bed, and I had my door was open, and in the back there was a light that was casting, and you could see a shadow moving back and forth across the doorway, but there was actually no person that was walking across the doorway. It was just casting a shadow on the floor in front of me. I remember being terrified. Throughout my time that I lived there, I saw my first shadow person at around 10 years old, right around in there. My shadow person experience was rather terrifying, if I don't say so myself. I'd never in my life seen anything like it to this day, but I was walking through what we call like our dining room, and off to the left of that we had like a great room. And when I looked over, there was a shadow person standing there. And you know how when like men, when they're getting angry and they're getting ready to fight, and they stand there with like their arms bowed out or whatever, and they get like puffed up. It was it was standing there in that position, and it was so dark you couldn't see through it. It looked like somebody took a cookie cutter in the shape of that person and just stamped it out of the landscape.
Wow.
That I've never seen anything like it since. Very rarely do I ever hear of shadow people being that dark. I mean, it does happen, but I would say that it's probably few and far between.
So was this like an old house that you just lived in, or did this kind of just start up all of a suddenly while you were there?
As far as I remember, the activity started like after we moved in. Like I think it was I don't ever remember it not having activity. And I remember like looking at the house with my parents when they were shopping to buy. And I remember when we walked in the house, it looked like somebody had just picked up and left. Like all this stuff was still there. Like there was cobwebs in it. Like it was pretty run down. I don't know what happened before that. I mean, I don't know because I was a kid. But yeah, I remember the entire time that I was there, stuff had happened while I was there. I remember talking to my parents about the experiences that I was having. I remember talking to my peers about the experiences that I was having. And I grew up in the 80s, so it's going to show my age a little bit. But, back then, people didn't talk about that stuff. I mean, I'm sure there were, like, you have, like, I think the Warrens were back in the 70s and 80s, I want to say, like, right in, I mean, people did exist, but we didn't have the internet. Like, we couldn't Google anything. People didn't advertise things like that. So to actually find help for people that were having those kind of experiences, I mean, it was pretty futile.
So you say probably back then it wasn't as socially recognized as it is now today?
No. Right. I remember my parents, and everybody has their own opinions about the paranormal, and I respect them. This isn't for everybody, and not everybody believes, but I remember talking to my parents about all these experiences that I was having, and it was like, well, it's just your imagination. Like, don't worry about it. But I remember sitting outside in the dark on my front porch, feeling safer out there by myself than I did in my own home.
So between the difference between the outside and the inside, could you tell the difference in the energy of the house versus outside?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When you'd go in, it was kind of like a heavy feeling. Now, I didn't ever get hurt. I was never like scratched or anything like that. But I do remember smells being a frequent occurrence in that home. I couldn't tell you exactly what that smelled like now, because that's been, 30 years ago that all of that started. But I remember I didn't like it. I will say that. I remember it smelling bad. I know a lot of people associate that with like demonic hauntings and things. I don't think that's what it was, in my opinion, knowing what I know now. But yeah, it was a palpable difference for me anyway. Nobody else in my family ever experienced anything but me.
So your page mentions that you're not a professional paranormal investigator, but you've done some amateur dabblings. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've done some. I've went to a few events. One of the events, like most recently that I went to an event at Malvern Manor in Iowa. It was on actually Friday the 13th, back in December. That was a very cool experience. A lot of the people there had pretty profound experiences. I know that he has some stuff somewhere, it's posted online somewhere, where people caught doors opening and things like that. I've never professionally investigated anything. All of the things that I've done were guided. I went to the Brown Mansion in Coffeyville, Kansas before. That was a pretty cool experience. Fourth State Paranormal with David Glidden. They're the ones that hosted that event, and that was like, oh gosh, that was 10 years ago or so. I can't even remember. Yeah, so basically those are my events, and I think that I'm forgetting one, and I just can't think about it right now. Like, I can't think of it. It's not coming to my mind.
All right, so... go ahead.
Okay. No, I've just always been interested, and I've went to places that were supposedly haunted or whatever, and kind of walked around. Every town has their urban legends. Around here, it's Witch's Hollow. Is what they called it. But yeah, so I've went to various locations just to see if I would experience anything. But other than that, no, I haven't done any kind of formal investigation at all.
Okay, so out of visiting these manors and whatnot, what would be probably your most memorable encounter during those times that you'd visited those places?
Back at Malvern Manor last year, and I'm kind of skeptical about it, because I will say that, anxiety or fear or, plays a lot into that. But I was up in the attic with two other people, and they had a millimeter up there, and, they were asking questions, and, the millimeter would fluctuate. And I could swear that my hair was picked up and dropped like 2 times, like a strand of my hair. At first I thought, like if the wind blows or whatever and your hair kind of gets messed up and then it like falls or whatever, because I have longer hair, I thought maybe it was that. It happened twice. But by far, the most profound experiences I've had were in my home growing up. I've never found anything that has ever topped anything that I experienced in that house, for sure. But I also haven't had a lot of exposure either, so.
Okay. So a help desk for paranormal issues is quite a unique idea. What gave you that idea, and at what point did you decide to do this?
Well, what started, what was the catalyst to this whole thing? Several years, 10 years ago or so, maybe 11, when the Dead Files came out. I remember watching the Dead Files. It may have been less than 10 years. I think I've had the Paranormal Help Desk for about 10 years, maybe a little less. I don't know exactly what date I started that page, and this is all kind of an estimate. But I remember watching Amy Allen on the Dead Files, and she was talking about at the end of the show, like, you need a shaman or you need a medium and you need to do all of these things. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, how would anybody find these people? I mean, yeah, sure, you can do a Google search, but that doesn't mean that you're going to find anything regarding what you're looking for. And several times, you know, at the end of the show, they would say, you know, the owner's still looking for, you know, a shaman to perform whatever Amy had said or whatever. And I remember how scared I was and how desperate I was. And you see it on these paranormal programs all the time, that people are just scared and they're desperate and they feel defeated and they're stuck in a home that they don't feel safe in and that they're not comfortable in. So that's kind of where the idea kind of came from, drawing from my personal experiences, watching it on TV. And I'm a helper by nature. I'm an ER nurse. And before that, I worked on an ambulance for about 17 years.
Well, thank you for your service.
Well, thank you. and that's actually the driving force behind an event that I'm actually starting to plan. It's in the beginning stages. But anyway, I drew from all of that experience, and I wanted to help people. I want to help people that are having a hard time. So then the Paranormal Help Desk was born. What we do is, well, it's me. I'm the only one that runs the help desk. I don't have any help, but I do reach out to people, and people do help me. And so it's not just me, I guess. But we find paranormal teams to investigate the homes of people experiencing hauntings. People reach out to me. I do this free of charge. And I do this worldwide. I've had cases like in the UK. I've had them in Ireland, you know, in the States. One place I haven't been, that I haven't gotten anything from, is South America. So I don't know. But we do it worldwide. And then, you know, once they tell me what's going on in their home, then basically I find a team that's willing to go to their home and investigate their home for free. I will never send them anybody that charges them money. Also, the Paranormal Help Desk serves as a resource for different paranormal teams. So, like, if a paranormal team is on an investigation or they're dealing with a case and they need resources like Reiki masters or mediums or anything like that, they can shoot me a message and I will do the best that I can to find the resource that they're looking for. So,
okay,
that's what I do.
Right on. That's very important work. Now,
thank you.
How exactly does this process work? Let's say I reach out to you and I have an entity that's attached to me and it's really causing havoc in my life. So I reach out to you. So what happens from there on your end?
On my end, what I do is the first thing that I ask them is if they want me to find them a team. And if they do want me to find a team, then I ask their location and a good phone number, so that when I do find a team, they have a phone number that they can call. And then I need like a city and state or wherever they're at in another country, so I can narrow down my search so I can find a team that's closest to them. After that, I start asking them questions about what's going on, like how many people live there, what experiences have they had, how many people are experiencing paranormal activity that come into your home, like visitors or, you know, family members. One of the big questions is like, is anybody getting hurt? And is there any smells associated? Like basically a whole, long list of questions. And it's kind of a case by case, and it just depends on how they answer. Previous questions will determine what other questions that I ask. And once I get the information that I need, I basically put what I call an all call out on the paranormal help desk. And basically I will ask, I need a paranormal team that services this area. Usually I will get somebody that will reach out to me and say, hey, I'm in this area. One of the people that have helped me, it was Red Dirt Paranormal. They reached out to me and they're like, oh, well, I can take that case. I have people in that area. And basically I pass on all the information that I collected from the client onto that paranormal team so that they know everything that I know. The paranormal team will then contact the client and make arrangements for an investigation at the house. I also like to keep in contact with the client and with the team. That way, if I can help with anything else in between time, then I'm available for that as well. And I always tell my clients that if they're not happy with their team, or if they feel like more needs to be done, to reach out to me, and I will do whatever I can to accommodate that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so without disclosing any potential sensitive information and whatnot, can you share a story or two about some of the cases that you've helped with?
Yes, actually, recently, probably within the last, I want to say within the last 5 months, I want to say it was fall, winter of last year. Don't quote me on that because I'd have to go back and look. But I had a case in the UK. Somebody, actually, a paranormal team reached out to me from the UK, and they said that they had somebody that was a friend that was experiencing activity in their home. This activity they viewed as negative, and they believe that there were rituals concerning paganism, I believe is what it was, witchcraft. They were concerned that there was some sort of magic going on in this situation. And I'll be the first to tell you, I don't know anything about paganism. I don't know anything about witchcraft. I don't know any of that. So basically, I reached out to another person that is on another team. They reached out to me because I felt I needed somebody that was familiar with these areas of expertise, because I don't know what I'm talking about in regards to that. But if they could contact me, and somebody did. This person explained a bunch. He told me what kind of people that I would need on the team, because depending on what's going on in the home will determine what kind of team that I find. If they believe that it's negative or demonic, then I would try to find a team that has mediums and demonologists and things of that nature, so that once the investigation takes place and they figure out what they're dealing with, then they can do what they need to do to rectify that situation and get the activity cleared from the home. So once I found out what I needed to know and what kind of people that I was looking for, I reached out to teams in the UK, and I actually found that woman a team within 12 hours, I believe, over in the UK. Mm. Sometimes it takes me a little bit longer when it's overseas. It just depends, because there's time zone differences. But as a general rule, I could pretty much find a team within 12 hours or so.
That's good. So so do you just maintain a list of teams that you kind of work with in those different areas, and you just kind of coordinate and network with them?
I come across a lot of teams, and I don't really have any kind of list or database that I go by. I actually have not had a case in the same area ever. So my list would be forever changing, because you don't typically revisit, certain cities or, certain areas more than once, or I haven't yet anyway. So I don't have a list. Most of the time, I keep teams in mind based on their location. you come across, as the Paranormal Help Desk, I come across a lot of teams. I also am a big fan of sharing paranormal everything. I will share podcasts and live streams, events, Patreon pages, YouTube channels, everything paranormal, because that's kind of my way of giving back to the paranormal community. Because in all reality, if I didn't have them, if I didn't have paranormal teams, and I didn't have a relationship with any of them, then I wouldn't be able to do what I do. So it's kind of my way of giving back to the paranormal community is kind of my way of doing that. But yeah, I don't have a database. One of the ones that I used online was Paranormal Societies, but it is very outdated. A lot of the teams that are listed on there are no longer together, or they're not investigating anymore. And there's really no rhyme or reason on how it's put together. Ideally, I would need something that went by location and not just like a random list of names. You know what I mean? But I have thought about putting together a database, but I have not taken steps to do that as of yet. I will go through messages, teams message me and say, hey, I would like to be put on a list. And, I let them know I don't have a list, but I do have this message. And if I have a team, I do go through my previous messages and see if any of those teams match an area that I'm looking for. And I will reach out to them if that's the case. But
Okay. So just kind of want to rewind real quick. You had mentioned, local legends and stuff like that. And you called one out by name called the Witch's
Hollow. Yeah.
The Witch's Hollow. So would you just take a second, maybe just share with us this legend? I've always been a kind of a fan of local legends. So it's nice. It's kind of cool to hear what other local legends that people come across.
Yeah, for sure. Witch's Hollow, I've heard that growing up as a kid. They talk about it's like a stretch of road out in the country, and basically like the trees are going over the top of the road. It's actually really cool. The tree, so it's basically like you're driving through like a tree tunnel. There was talk of like witchcraft going on out in these areas. I don't know if that ever really truly happened. But people would go out there at night, and they say if you went out there at night and you sat with your car off, you would hear, like screams or, chanting or whatever. I've never personally heard any of that, but that was basically the local legend of Witch's Hollow. A lot of kids would go out there. You'd go out there, and if you see a car sitting there, then you would leave and come back later because, most people, they were out there by themselves mostly. We also had another one called Litchfield. Litchfield was, there's a bridge out there, and I think this is probably a common urban legend about like a bridge. If you go out there and turn your car off and turn the lights off, then like your car will be pushed, or you will hear, noises, and when you go to start the car won't start. There was actually, and this is kind of, this is kind of like an interesting point. Growing up through in my area, there was always talk of like satanic worshiping or devil worshiping and that kind of thing. And Litchfield was also associated with that, urban legend about witchcraft and, or not witchcraft, but devil worshiping and Satanism and that kind of thing. Back, I want to say in the late 80s, maybe early 90s, late 80s, early 90s in there, there was a town that is probably about 30 minutes southeast of where I live, or where Litchfield is. There was actually 3 people that killed another human being. Basically, it was a sacrifice to Satan. So there is actually a legal case that is tied with like devil worshiping and that kind of thing in this area. So I thought that was kind of an interesting point that would, that we would have all those rumors and then you have that case happen or whatever.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you have an event coming up. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Oh, absolutely. I'm an ER nurse, and watching everything unfold with the pandemic that we have going on. Italy was hit very, very hard. China was hit very, very hard. And to date, there have been a lot of deaths associated with the virus. And I know as a nurse, it's stressful. We've had cases in our area as well. This event is going to be in the spring of 2021, and basically, I'm trying to. The goal is to reach out to different locations across the country, actually worldwide, because we actually have some interest in other countries. But this event, we're reaching out to haunted location owners and asking if they would be willing to donate their building for one night in spring of 2021. And it's going to be an event for nurses, firefighters, doctors, any kind of first responder, EMTs, paramedics, police officers. Basically, it's offering them a night of paranormal investigation for free as basically a thank you for being on the front lines during the pandemic that we're having. So hopefully we can get this event pulled together and get it going. We do have some locations that have committed to this project. So it's going to be called the Paranormal Relief Project. So that's what we're looking forward to. Hopefully.
Excellent. Wow, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. We're hoping that we can actually live stream all of these investigations because, like I said, it's going to be multiple locations worldwide, and hopefully we will be able to stream these so that people can see, what's going on at all of these locations. So, that's just kind of like a sneak peek. We haven't really officially released anything yet, but I will tell you that it is in the works, and we've had some locations that have committed to this project, and I have, some great people working with me on this project. So we're really looking forward to it, and we're hoping that there's a lot of interest among, nurses and, all of our first responders, the people that are responsible for keeping us healthy and safe. This is a very stressful time for them, and there's been a lot of lives lost, and it's very stressful. And I can tell you from personal experience, it's very stressful taking care of somebody that you want to save so bad, and you can't.
Right.
Despite what you do, you can't. And so hopefully this event will offer them a night, an evening of basically just paranormal investigating. I'm sure most of these people, it will be the first time. Some of them probably not. So hopefully it'll be a really cool experience for everyone involved. So
right.
That's what we're working on.
So I'm going to touch just a little bit of basis here, just because of the fact that you have mentioned that you're an ER nurse and you're kind of actively serving in that role. And I've even got family. I've worked in a hospital myself. So yes, it can be very stressful, but needs are different beyond, on so many different levels, according to where you're at and how you're hit by this pandemic. So, my question is to you is, if there was just a handful of items that you would say that you guys as a hospital that you're at right now would need the most, what would it be?
If there was a handful of items that we needed the most?
Yes, that you're running short of.
Fortunately, where I'm at, we haven't been hit that hard. I know that there is a worldwide shortage of personal protective equipment, like the N95 mask, regular mask, gloves, gowns, that kind of thing. Fortunately, we haven't had an issue with that. I know that if we run out, that we would have a hard time replacing that stuff. But I'm pretty sure in North Kansas, in northern Kansas City area, there is shortages of, PPE is what we call it, mask, N95 mask, and that kind of thing. But personally, for my facility, I don't have anything that I could think of off the top of my head that we have a shortage of, but we've been very, very lucky in my area as far as corona cases. We haven't had that many.
Yeah, I'm based out of Washington. We've been hit pretty hard. I know here locally, versus last week to this week, we're down to half the cases that we had from the week prior, which is good. But it's so amazing to see the communities pull together to help our hospitals and help our ER staff deal with this pandemic, and it's very important. And please share this with your coworkers. I share it for anybody else who works in a hospital or a clinic or anything like that is also experiencing this. Especially that it's stressful and hard on you guys as well as families and everything else. But I know for me and my family and our community, we thank you guys so much during this pivotal time. I know it's sometimes that in these lines of field, you just don't hear that very often.
I appreciate that. That truly means a lot to me. Thank you for taking the time out of your podcast to say that. I mean, it really touches me, and thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. Thank you. And
I think I can speak on everybody's behalf, everybody, nurses and things, when I say thank you. I think that they would definitely say the same thing, for sure.
Absolutely. So for any of you guys that tune into this episode at a later date or whatnot from download, if you got extra supplies or you're actively making supplies, take the time and just kind of donate, or even just simply walk up to one and just tell them thank you. So take the time for that. Tori, thank you so much for being with us this evening to share with us your experiences and the fantastic work you do.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun. I was kind of nervous rambling a little bit. I'm sure you noticed.
No, it's fine. It's been a great pleasure, and it has been real fun to be able to sit down and share this.
Also, I'd like to say, if there is any location owners out there that would like to donate their building to this project for a night in 2021, to contact the Paranormal Help Desk, and I will definitely get you guys set up if you want to. Obviously, it's not a requirement. I mean, this is all a donation basis. So, but I would appreciate the help if anybody would like to do that, for sure.
So you can find the Paranormal Help Desk. They are on Facebook. It's facebook.com/the Paranormal Help Desk, and that's the best place where they can reach and get a hold of you for help. So you don't have to suffer.
For sure.
So you don't have to suffer alone. There are resources out to help. Please use them. It's very vital. And Tori, think you want more? Just hang out here after the show. I'll get with you. We'll coordinate some other stuff with the show, with your upcoming event and stuff like that. I'd like to get that shared as well. So, just hang with me here, and
all right,
I'll be with you here in just a moment. Thank you. So that concludes our segment here. We will be back on the 2nd of May at 4 p.m. with Marilyn Hughes to discuss spirit guides and guardian angels. And in segment 2, we will be talking about her book that's releasing here soon called Dialogues with a Mystic. I thank you guys for taking the time to listen. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy, and we will see you on May 2nd.
If you enjoyed our show tonight, head on over to Paranormal Engaged on Facebook and stay up to date on the latest news. And don't forget to click that like button. To find more about upcoming shows and guest information, stop by www.paranormalengaged.com. Paranormal Engaged can be found on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcast, and can be played on Alexa with a Podbean skill.